So this just came. May as well do a quick walkthrough. Brand new fresh ramial cut chips. It looks like I can see some leaves. I can see some needles, so probably some conifers and some other deciduous trees. Similar to this mix, but this looks to be more conifers. Over here, I know that this pile was a pine tree, but it's on top of older, much older, like 3-year-old wood chip compost. So I collected this the other day myself by hand and got chewed up by chiggers in the process. So I mixed it. It's been mixed with the aged chips that I have. Since it too is 2 years old, it'll continue to be used for wood chip compost. I'll turn it a few more times. I don't need any right now. At least I don't need any of that. What I need is this. This is fresh cut. This has still got leaves. For those of you folks that really like leaf compost and leaf mold, it's got plenty of it in there. This is what I'm using right now in my garden. I've already got my plants in place, got my seedlings coming up. There's a lot of life. But I chipped this myself with my own 8-inch Wood Max. It's very, very fine, and I like to lay it on top as a weed germination prevention. Y'all hear the birds? They're going crazy today, even the crows. But I'm going to take a walk over here too, because I've got a compost pile nearby. This is my compost pile. Most of what has been entered to this compost is green manure. Y'all familiar with what green manure is? It's the stuff that came from my garden that, for whatever reason didn't make the cut for eating, or, it was something that didn't need to be eaten. It was just the greens from a plant. So it all ends up here. You can even see some sticks. A lot of that is roots from some stuff that was pulled and no longer for us. And a little bit of dirt, but not a whole lot. But for the most part, there's some wood chips still showing. This is about a year old. And it's pretty healthy. It'll grow weeds easily. It'll grow grass. But I'm going to keep on turning it. It's going to get a solarizing tarp on top of it since we just moved it here. It'll get covered up, and I'll maintain the temperature higher than normal. I may be putting some other green stuff in here to help make up for whatever is being washed out by the rains. And eventually this will be used for potting of plants and shrubs that we are growing pretty much at all times. I like to propagate them. I like to use roses and things like that, hydrangeas, to make clones. And this is the soil that will ultimately end up in. It doesn't start in that soil, but it ends in this soil. So I gotta have a lot of it on hand. Some of you may be saying, well, hey, Creemore, how come you don't put that in the garden? I don't need it. My entire garden is compost. It's just a sheet form. We've been laying those wood chips on that ground there for over 8 years. And I've also been amending it for pH expression, for specific plants, and I've been entraining it with different things like calcium, magnesium, nitrogen, of course, rather constantly, phosphorus, potassium, micro and macro minerals, the small ones and the really, really small ones. So that's kind of in here. It is. But there's other stuff in here. I also use weeds, believe it or not, inside this mix. I've got some other videos detailing that process, because those particular weeds are hyper accumulators or dynamic accumulators, and they will take into them all sorts of good stuff from the soil in an effort to improve the soil quality where they are landed by Mother Nature. So in her infinite wisdom, since she believes they are effective, so do I. So I put them in there. But I like to use this stuff for my flower beds up at the house. Mama likes it. I use it less for my garden because it contains dirt. And Creemore doesn't grow in dirt. He grows in wood chips. So here you can get a pretty good idea how deep some of these beds are. As I walk up to it, you can see they're pretty deep. And that's all wood chips. It's not dirt. Sure, there's a hill there, y'all can get a pretty good idea of the slope through here. It's easy to see under my greenhouse frames that there's definitely some slope, because the greenhouse frames are level on top. I don't have any problems with water pooling other than the water that sits beneath these beds and continues to add moisture to the plants. You can even see my sweet potatoes here, my blueberry bushes there in the background. And this is the fence system that supports the cucumbers that are growing right now. And there's some more sweet potatoes. Oh, some more sweet potatoes. This is the youngest bed that I have. It's only a couple of years old. This right here that we're arriving at is where I used to compost before I learned my lesson. If I had to say, hey, where in your garden do you have the most trouble? It's right here. You see the way my plants look? There's additional insects here. There's mites and all kinds of other things that are here that infect these plants. And that depression right there is exactly where my compost pile used to be. I just showed you where the new compost pile is. It's plenty far away from the garden. I don't want to invite these bugs to my garden. And I was. In addition to inviting bugs, I also saw moles and voles here. You know, when I removed the compost system, that's what I found. So I don't need those subterranean borers, earth borers in my garden plots, because they're essentially trespassing. And in the efforts that we've made, we're starting to see positive results. It's improving. They're going away. Life's getting better. There you can see my edamame down low. They'll be trained to that fence shortly. But yes, so this is a new plot, and this plot does not perform nearly as well as the big plot back there. So one of them has time on its side, and one of them is getting older as we speak. Great example of the difference between a 3-year-old plot and an 8-year-old plot. This plot's doing pretty well. So those of you in your 3rd year, you got a lot to look forward to. Anyway, hope that clears up a couple little issues.